I'm Clark Speaks, the catastrophic injury lawyer. Welcome to The Verdict. This is Catastrophic Comeback. So let me ask you something else. So I have two kids who are starting college in the fall, right? And I don't worry about them academically. I don't worry about them getting in trouble. They're good people. And they got their stuff together. What I worry about is, will they find a really good social group to spend time with, and to a friend group to do things with, and to experience the fun things about college. Do you know? Can you speak about how that might look for a person who's maybe going back to school a little older, and what types of social opportunities might they have as a student going back under these circumstances?
UNCW, we have over probably 150 different student organizations on campus for students to join. If you are not engaged, we have what we call our involvement compass, where you can meet with a staff member in the Division of Student Affairs, and you can have a conversation with them about what are your likes and dislikes, and they will suggest to you some organizations that you should possibly think about joining or attending those meetings. Early on in my career, I was tasked with setting up programs for transfer students. And I remember going to a bowling alley with transfer students, and the students wanted to buy beer. Most of these transfer students were over 21. They were older, and they wanted to do this. I said, "No, you can't do this." And they said, "Well, we won't come. Like, we don't want to do what 18. We don't want to be treated like 18 and 19-year-olds." And some of these transfer students had families, and it was bowling. And we said that they could bring their families. We'd pay for them to bowl, but they wanted to do all the things in which adults have an opportunity to do, and not be confined by university rules and regulations. And so that has shifted. As the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, I've said we need to have programs for our adult learners and our adult students, and we are doing just that. So don't be afraid to say, "Oh, well, most of our traditional college students are between the ages of 18 and 22. I don't really fit in with that group." There are organizations and programs for students who are returning to college after being out for some years, or fit into what the category what we call adult learners.
So as you're talking now, I'm kind of picturing, okay, these former clients that I have represented that maybe are now in wheelchairs, or have maybe lost limbs, or they have these physical disabilities, and if they wanted to go back and retrain and re-engage in a different career path, I can see absolutely them going and maybe going to soccer games that I'm sure would have these meet these accessibility requirements that you've described. Maybe going to football games or basketball games, or being involved in these other organizations, and really feeling a part of this community, regardless of their age or physical or mental health limitations.
Absolutely. And just as a Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, even when there is a mail truck blocking a handicapped space, I tend to hear about it. And so we do all that we can to ensure that students who come to UNCW and most institutions of higher education, that they feel like they belong. And there's a lot of talk right now in higher education about a sense of belonging and what does that mean. But in order for us to retain students, they have to feel like that they belong and that they are part of the campus community. And I think we try to be intentional by creating programs that students feel like that they are actually a part of campus, but also a part of their academic program. Because if they don't, they'll leave, and no institution wants that.
It occurs to me after some of your descriptions today that doesn't necessarily end with graduation. You've talked about being connected to your former students, and I imagine, I know from other conversations I've had with you, you're connected with other people that you went to school with, or you went to graduate school with. And so can you talk about a little bit about that? If a person were to go back to school, might they have connections with faculty, with administration, with other students that might last a lifetime?
Absolutely. And once you graduate and I'm just speaking from UNCW, I'm excited to go to Texas, but it's my current job, it's what I know. You have the opportunity to visit and meet with a career counselor as an alumni of UNCW. So we want to make sure that even though you may have graduated, as we say, leave the nest, you are still connected to our institution. We have a number of events all over the state of North Carolina. We've done some things in the DC area to try to engage our alumni. So even after you graduate, you are still a Seahawk. You still belong to UNCW. You're a part of our community. One of the hardest jobs that I have is talking to parents after they've lost a son or daughter or going to the funeral of a deceased student. And after that, we host a memorial service on campus. Carlton Fisher, who happens to be on our board of trustees and local commercial and residential real estate developer here in Wilmington, his family has what they call the Fisher Memorial, named after his mother and father, where we place a brick of every student that has passed from UNCW, regardless of their classification. A couple months ago, I went to Los Alamitos, California, call it a suburb of Los Angeles, because we lost a student. When I talked to my colleagues at other institutions, they said, no, we don't send a staff member to a funeral. When I went to the funeral, not only did the parents give me a hug, they invited me to their house. We were on the other side of the country, and for someone who left Wilmington, North Carolina to go to say, I'm here, I'm representing the university, your son, in this case, was a part of our community, and I want you to know that we care. That's special, and that doesn't happen everywhere, but that's something that we do at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And so even if a student comes to us and they have a TBI and they realize that they can't do it, they are always going to be a member of our community. And that's what's most important to me as a Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, but I think that's just the culture of the institution.
And let me ask you this. You've worked at a number of other institutions. You've been to Hampton, Indiana, Alabama, Western Carolina, UNCW, you're going to Texas. If we have listeners in other areas, is it your experience that other schools have other people who feel similarly to you do in terms of their commitment to connecting and supporting students and their families?
Absolutely. I mean, most definitely student affairs would be the first kind of division that I would go to, as it is our job to make sure the students feel like that they have a place on campus. And that's what we do. We went into these careers to interact and engage with students. I will say that as my career has progressed, I have gotten further and further away from students. And my dean of students always tells me that if a student makes it to my office, something has gone really, really wrong. And I circle back and I said, it doesn't mean something has gone really, really wrong. I want to have the time to engage with those students. That's why I went into the profession. It's just my schedule sometimes precludes me from interacting with students and making sure that I can provide the support that they need. But we have people on campus, on any campus, I would say start with someone in the Division of Student Affairs.
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions that we sort of touched on in our previous conversation. I know from personal conversations that I've had with you that you're a person of faith and that your faith is important to you, and we've talked in a different context, in different contexts about things related to faith. The thing that I am trying to talk to our audience about is faith when bad things happen. So the question is, if God is good and God is powerful, then why does God let bad things happen to good people? And the idea is that people lose loved ones and people have these catastrophic injuries. And is that something that you can speak to us about your personal viewpoint?
It's really, I have a college classmate who is a year older than me, and I'm going to just say between 40 and 45, who was the mother of 3 kids who lost her life earlier this week.
Oh.
Married, mother, 3 kids, had cancer and just could not beat cancer. When I was working on my dissertation, My mother was in ICU for quintuple bypass surgery, and my father was terminally ill. And so I left Indiana and I went. I still have those crates with articles in them. I would take my laptop and crates with articles and books in them to the ICU waiting room, because that's where I would sit all day and write my dissertation. And in most instances, I was there alone. And I say to myself, at some point, I probably just should have said, this is it. Like, well, the PhD can wait. You're 23, maybe? 23, 24? The PhD can wait. You need to take care of your mother. You need to take care of your father. But I could kind of subconsciously hear my mother saying, you need to finish this. You know, you need to do this. And this is what would make me most proud. And even when my mother came out of ICU and she was in rehab and she went home, she said, you go back and you finish that degree. I'm going to be okay. I finished my PhD, ended up finishing my PhD and graduating in May. Went back to Dallas to kind of take care of my father. He ended up dying that October. And then I started the University of Alabama, maybe in March or April. And here I am, this newly minted guy with this PhD whose father's died, mother is dealing with, significant health challenges. And I had encouragement and I relied on my faith to really get me through those situations, that I can do this. I can be successful. I can continue to press on. I ended up maybe from that bypass surgery 7 years later burying my mother. When I think about kids who are in foster care, it's interesting because I think of myself as a kid who's an orphan, because both of my parents were deceased probably by the time I was 35. And to have to navigate this world on your own at that age. And most people, may say, Lowell, that 35 is old, but to try to buy a house or to, look for someone for moral support or someone when there are challenges on my job that I can talk to. I tell people all the time, if no one loves you, in most instances, your mother's going to love you. You can always call your mom. Even when your dad's upset with you, you can still go to mom, and mom will tell your dad.
She's going to be on your side.
She's going to be on your side regardless. But to be at that point and to not have someone to talk to about those things, even when I went to Dallas and I had a level of anxiety, and this was recently, and I called a friend, and they said, what's different is that what you know of Dallas and your parents being there, they're no longer there. Where you're used to getting, landing at the airport and you're used to doing these things, that's just not a part of your life anymore. And so you have to figure out how to move past those things. And through, I would say, faith and determination and just grit is the only way I think that I am probably standing right now. I've had personally people to lie on me. I've had challenges professionally, whether they be racial, whether they are discrimination because of my gender, just statements that were not untrue. The only thing I could turn to through all of that was my faith, and I could sleep at night because I knew that I hadn't intentionally mistreated anyone and that God had my back through all of it. And even in those times when I thought they were the darkest and I couldn't see my way through it, God still had my back. I'm still able to leave an institution that I absolutely love, that has about 18,000 students, and become vice president of student affairs at a university that has 46,000 students that is in my hometown. And I just can't think of anyone else who could make that happen.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us to stay up to date with our weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.